serious, it's fun, it's your Catholic drive time.
We're joined right now by Patrick Trueman, founder of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining our program.
Thank you very much. Actually, I'm the president, not the founder. It's a organization that's about 57, 58 years old.
Wow.
You can see I'm much younger than that.
Well, yeah, praise be to God for it too. Well, I did have an opportunity to interview you some years ago. You and your organization were hosting a summit here in the Houston area, and I was able to get you into the studio. We had a great conversation. Now, I wrote a book in 2014 on how to overcome pornography addiction based on my own experience of addiction, and your information, Porn Harms, was so critical and vital. I've used it many times. I've shared it many times, and when I've been able to travel and speak on the subject. And the joke goes, there's no man in America who knows more about pornography than you. And I'm sure that gets a chuckle, but I think it's also very true. Can you give us really quick your background on fighting pornography in America?
Well, when I was with the U.S. Department of Justice, the Attorney General at that time under the Reagan administration, Ed Meese, formed a criminal division prosecution section to go after the major producers and distributors of pornography in America. And I ended up heading that unit called the Child Exploitation and Obscenity Section. And we put on a target list about 70 different major porn industry companies. And by the time of the end of the Bush administration, the first Bush administration, we had prosecuted almost half of those. And we would have completely eliminated the porn industry had that section not stopped prosecuting. At the end of the Bush administration, Bill Clinton got in, and that section was downgraded. They stopped going after the porn industry, and sort of the rest is history. Then, with the internet pornography, it's everywhere, and so many people have been entrapped by it. And really, it's still against the law today to distribute hardcore pornography. If the Justice Department would prosecute, this wouldn't be a problem.
Maybe we can define terms. I mean, I don't want to get graphic here, but pornography is sold in hotel rooms all across the planet today. What is considered hardcore? What isn't?
Well, normally a depiction of sexual acts is considered hardcore pornography. It doesn't have to be actual. It could be just simulated sex acts. But normally that's the standard. The legal definition is more complicated than that. But essentially, that's what it is. And by the way, in a project of our organization, we took on the hotel industry, and most hotels now don't have pornography in the rooms.
Praise be to God for that. We're talking with Patrick Trueman. He is president of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. Well, I want to talk about the stats with pornography. I'm caught off guard is what I want to say. Anytime I encounter Christians, specifically Catholics, that seem to give a pass to pornography. They act as though it's harmless or it's just entertainment that could even help couples, they'll say many times. But the stats don't bear that. Can you share with us some of the statistics on why pornography is harmful?
Well, I think the first thing you need to know is that the pornography industry has eroticized sexual violence. They've eroticized rape. Rape is a very common theme. Child sex abuse is a very common theme. Sexual violence is a very common theme. So that you have in something in excess of 90% of all the porn films, those themes. So the consumers of that material take that into their brain, and it has an effect on them. Pornography particularly affects the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which is where if it isn't developed right, that harms your common sense. It harms your good judgment. That's the part of the brain that deals with impulse control. So if you're consuming sexual violence constantly, if you're consuming child sex abuse constantly, etc., that is going to make a difference in your daily life. So that's what the porn industry is doing to the world.
Patrick Trueman is our guest. He's the president of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. But Patrick, people are encountering this stuff pretty much everywhere now. It's not just the days are gone where you'd have some building on the side of the highway in the middle of outside of town, and it'd be indiscreet cars parked there, and nobody would know who they were or coming. But those days are gone. This is way more accessible now than it ever has been in the history of the world, wouldn't you say?
Well, no question. And what parents don't realize is that when they give their child a cell phone, they're giving them a porn store. And so you have on Twitter, you have on Facebook, and all these social networking sites, pornography. The people are, the porn industry is putting that material out there in order to gain customers. And individuals are trading it. Individuals are making money on sites like OnlyFans and et cetera. So that kind of material is just omnipresent on the internet and on these social networking sites. So you're right. It's no longer just the store out in the edge of town or in a seedy part of downtown big city. It's everywhere. And something that occurs to me as I'm talking here, Bishop Sheen said in his book, Life in Christ, I think it was, that to those who live close to the flesh never understand the spiritual. And that's what we have to understand, that when you're living in the flesh, when you're looking at pornography, you crowd out the spiritual. That spiritual life doesn't exist in a regular pornography users. And as Catholics, we have to be very concerned about that. The Catholic Church Catechism says that the consumption of pornography is a grave offense. That's the essence of this whole story.
I want to talk more about the link between sort of this notion that many have, Christians, Catholics, people in society, that think pornography is no big deal. It's just entertainment. What's the problem? And some of these more perverse things that we're dealing with, violence and crimes and perversities like transgenderisms and confusions. There is a link here. Could it be said that pornography can be the air quotes gateway drug to so much worse?
Well, no question about it. There are numerous studies that associate sexual violence with the consumption of pornography. I think that statistics show that boys are 2 to 3 times more likely to engage in sexual dating violence if they are consuming pornography. And it makes sense because pornography has so much sexual violence. What you need to understand about pornography is that it never satisfies. The brain always demands harder and more deviant material. It's called escalation. So you might just look at topless photos initially, but you want more. And on the internet and on your telephone, your cell phone, there's always more in some place. And so the escalation leads you to harder and more deviant material. And then there's the experimentation. You don't want to just look at it, you want to participate in it. So pornography does lead to violence. There's no question about it.
I think some people would look at this and say, like, for instance, they read in the headlines that some famous person was arrested because they had child pornography, and their mind starts to twist. How could this be? I think in some ways people feel like those people are somehow born different than the rest. They're born with this dysfunction or problem, and they can't seem to realize that nobody grows up thinking someday they're going to use child pornography. They find themselves there after a long road of going down this perverse path, and it's all linked together. Let's talk about some of the contributing factors. How about video games? How many parents out there allow their kids to play video games unrestricted? That's a big problem, isn't it?
Well, it's a big problem, but what many parents don't even realize is that on these video consoles, you have access to the internet, so you're playing people all over the world. But at the same time, since it's internet connected, there's a lot of pornography that's traded there. But it's also the sexual violence that's depicted there. Many times in these video games, there's a reward for winning, and it might be sex with a prostituted woman or some depiction of pornography. That's all there. And parents would say, well, I used to look at video games. Well, they're not the same today as they were before. And it's the same thing with pornography. It's not the same today as it was when you grew up.
We talked to Nick McKinley from Deliver Fund, and he is in the business of trying to bust human traffickers in the United States. And he talked about how video games were used to traffic children, to groom and traffic children in a major way. So it's a major concern. And I think there's also an issue there that kind of relates to, I've heard your own testimony of your work in New York to bust traffickers, pimps, prostitution. But now there's a libertarian movement that would seem to suggest that we should legalize prostitution. We should legalize a lot of these things that have been taboo in society. What would you say to that?
Well, the argument they say is that everybody should be able to make a living in any way that they want. But if you're in prostitution, most people in prostitution are actually trafficked. They'll have a pimp controlling them. They don't get the money. They don't have health care. They don't have any benefits. They're beaten regularly. This is sex trafficking. So the idea that we should legalize sex trafficking is just patently ridiculous.
Patrick Trueman is our guest. He is the president of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. Talking about pornography, but how it's connected to many evils and grave concerns in our society. Patrick, let's go to the Dirty Dozen. Now, this is something that your organization focuses on quite a bit in hopes of highlighting those organizations that we probably contribute to all the time, but who are either they're somehow connected to the porn and the porn problem in our country. Can you share with us the Dirty Dozen?
Sure. There's of course 12 companies that we've put on each year. Amazon is one of the top ones.
Wow.
Now, Amazon has a cloud service that has pornography. It's available to others. Amazon sells a host of products that are pornographic. They were selling child sex dolls, anatomically correct children that are made of materials that are skin-like, etc.
That's disturbing.
Amazon has always been a problem. Google's another one. Google Chromebooks, these little computers, laptop computers that are given away by many schools, have the filtering turned off. They have filters on them, but Google won't turn them on. And so many children in schools that get these are turning to pornography. Netflix is another one. Netflix has so much pornography on it, and all you have to do is search for it, and it's there. It's unfortunate, and kids are getting it so regularly. There's a number of other companies related to prostitution, like Seeking Arrangements. This is supposedly a site to help college girls earn a little bit of living, a good living. They'll connect them up with older men who want to date them. Well, of course, it's really a prostitution site because that's what the older men are looking for. Twitter's another one. Twitter has so much pornography on it, and it's used by sex traffickers to trade children and adults. So that's just a sampling of the 12, but you can find that Dirty Dozen list on our website, which is endsexualexploitation.org.
And there's a lot of resources there. I would highly recommend studies, statistics, and a lot more. You should be checking that out. We'll link to it, of course. Now, okay, we have about 5 minutes left in our conversation with Patrick Trueman, president of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. What do parents do? When you talk to parents, like what do you tell them? How do we protect our kids? We got to send them off to school. We don't know what their friends will bring to school. I myself, when I was in elementary school, got busted for passing pornography around the school. It was pretty embarrassing. I didn't get punished all that much for it, but nowadays it's on our phones, as you mentioned, and every kid has a phone. So what do parents do in this regard?
Well, I would really encourage them to go to our website. There's a section called Resources. Again, endsexualexploitation.org. Then you go to Resources right at the top of the page, and there are resources for parents. It'll tell you how to block a phone, and what to do with your computer, what services are available, what to do to your neighbor in your neighborhood, etc. Because you can do all the things possible to protect your children, but if they go next door and parents there haven't done anything, your kids are getting pornography. And one thing I would strongly advise is don't give your kids a cell phone. someone that we're associated with was asked, what's the appropriate age to give a child a cell phone? And I thought the answer was really quite wonderful. The answer was, you give a child a cell phone at whatever age you want your children to begin looking at pornography. Ooh. Doesn't that say it all?
Ouch.
Because if you have a cell phone, there's so many ways to get pornography. So don't do it.
Wow. That's pretty rough. You know, I shared this story several times, but I had someone call me years ago because I was known as the porn guy and locally helping people overcome pornography. And they said, I have an 18-year-old son who we caught using pornography in his bedroom on his computer. So we took his computer and shut the internet off. And I said, praise be to God, you've already done way more than most parents. And they said, but you don't understand. He built the computer out of spare parts and hacked the neighbor's Wi-Fi. And then I said, wow, that is pretty darn serious. And they said, well, he's about to go to college. We don't know what to do. I said, don't send him to college. He's not ready. And then they stopped talking to me because they couldn't wrap their mind around why they would not send their kid off to college. How about that? If kids aren't prepared to stand on their own 2 feet, should parents continue to help them and help prepare them for it?
Well, there's a lot of ways to prepare them for it. And I think parents should have some hope in this. It's really a good story that we can do a lot. And I would encourage you, again, to go to that resources section. Your child is going to be exposed to pornography. That's settled. The question is, what do you do when they are? How do you talk to them? What do you do to prepare them for that point? When they're young, there are books, that even as young kids that talk about how to, what's the appropriate approach to the body, etc. So there's a lot of hope for parents, and I would strongly encourage you to prepare yourself. And no matter what age your kids are, even if they're in college, there's still a lot you can do.
Just about a minute and a half left with Patrick Trueman. I want to end with a point that you mentioned early on very quickly, and that was they're no longer enforcing the law. Is that based just on politics? So when a particular political group gets into the office, then they decide whether or not they're going to enforce the law? Or have you seen this, both Republican and Democrat, not enforcing the law?
I've seen it in both Republican and Democrat. I worked for Attorney General Bill Barr when he was first Attorney General, and then in his second time as Attorney General under Trump. He wouldn't prosecute pornography the first time he did. And I think that there's a reluctance. They don't want to look like they're prudes or something. But here we have truly a pandemic. That's something I wrote about 10 years ago in the Knights of Columbus article. I called it the pornography pandemic. And people today want to say, well, that's trivializing a real pandemic. No, we have a pandemic of harm caused by pornography. We have to wake up to that. And the best tool to stop it is the law.
We saw an increase in pornography use over the pandemic 2020 years, so it's definitely a real problem. Patrick Trueman, president of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, thank you for your time today. We're very grateful to you and to your work and to your team.
Thank you very much.
God love you and God bless you. Have a great day. That is going to do it for hour number 1 of Catholic Drive Time. Praise be to God. We'll be posting this conversation later today on our YouTube channel and Facebook and elsewhere. You can find the links at grnonline.com/CDT. That's grnonline.com/CDT. If you can join us in the next hour, we're going to have the Fear and Trembling Catholic Trivia Game Show, and prizes are involved, and you could win. All that coming up in the next hour. God love you and God bless you. We'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.